Before the universe was created, there were two principles, light and darkness. In the kingdom of light, the father of light, Zurvan, isolated and unmovable amongst the five spaces of his kingdom: mind, knowledge, intellect, thought, and reflection. In this abode, there was a divine androgynous unity. There was no male and female, no distinction in rank, no greater or lesser, only difference in function, and everything proceeded from the divine mystery of the Father. But there was also another realm, a kingdom of chaos and insubordination, where demons fought for control. Only three words could ever describe their vicious nature: greed, lust, and wrath. They are strangers to peace and are full of wickedness and never have good intentions. The kingdom of death is divided against itself, and its subjects too stand against their kingdom. They are not at one with the one who produced them, but they all produce the worm for the destruction of their place. And there, the light is not seen. Its light and its grace are invisible, so that it does not give the evil kingdom an occasion for desire, and so that it should not be the cause for it to be provoked and harassed and to get into danger, but it is enclosed in splendor and gives no occasion because of its goodness. The demons were divided into male and female, and from their lustful union they gave birth to their own evil, demons that would be cannibalized by their own parents. They wielded their spears and shields, perforating one another through the continued cycle of death and rebirth. The archons expressed no loyalty or fraternal love to each other, but there existed one amongst them that they feared more than any other: their tyrannical master Satan Ahriman, who presided over the five elements of hell: smoke, pestilential winds, clouds, flames, and darkness. The hideous demon and the ugly form. He scorches, he destroys, and he terrifies. The bellicose prince of darkness has subjugated the five pits of death through great terror and wrath. He flies on wings as of air, he swims with fins as in water, and he crawls like a being in darkness. He is armed on his four limbs to repel the children of fire, rushing upon him like the beams of hell. Poisonous springs gush forth from him, and he exhales smoky fog. His claws and teeth are like daggers. Indeed, his head is lion-faced, which came about from the world of fire. His wings and his shoulders are eagle-faced, after the likeness of the children of the wind. His hands and feet are demons, after the likeness of the children of the world of smoke. His belly is dragon-faced, after the likeness of the world of darkness. His tail is the form of the fish, which belongs to the world of the children of the water. Zurvan understood the nature of darkness and veiled the kingdom of light from them. He would not lead his army to battle against the archons, instead leaving them on their own. However, the greed of darkness is an insatiable force that constantly demands for more than what is given. Consumed by madness, some archons ascended upwards through the poisoned winds and the flames of hell, and through the wafting smoke spotted the dim glint of heaven. Their hearts craved the sole possession of this paradise upon first view. When he heard their whispers in the wind, Satan was ecstatic. This would be the moment he would finally confront his mortal enemy and have him bow to darkness. United under his iron fist, the archons immediately launched an invasion against the kingdom of light. The 12 Aeons, the first hypostases of the Father, were stationed at the line of defense, shielding the celestial kingdom at every corner. Angels laid countless demons with their blades, while simultaneously sounding their trumpets. The Father stood at the center of the five kingdoms, aware yet unshaken by the conflict. Unlike the tyrannical Satan, he did not order his subjects to engage in pointless war and prevented them from being corrupted by the wickedness. So he proclaimed, I won't let my people die by their wicked hands, for I am the center of all their peace. I shall myself go face the Prince of Darkness. From his eternal light emerged the Mother of Life, the great spirit of wisdom, the creative force that could make his will come forward. This holy union resulted in the first warrior, Ormuzd, the primitive man. The Mother of Light kissed her son goodbye, and primitive man emanated 5 sons: light, fire, water, wind, and air, wearing them as his armor. The little one among the tall stepped in. He took up arms. He armed his waist. He leapt and raced into the abyss. He leapt and got to their center to battle them. The first man, he was sent out to the fight, and endurance came to him. I will strike my foot on the earth and sink their darkness down. I will smite their height with my hand and shake their firmament, and the stars shall shake down like leaves, and I will uproot the darkness and cast it out. And so Ormuzd shot through entire legions of demons with his arrows of light, but the archons began to surround him in a dome-like structure. It turned into a fight he was unable to handle, and so he fell on his knees. The false gods that have rebelled have taken their armor against me. The goddesses, the daughters of shame, have set up their armor against me. The goddesses, the daughters of shame, have set up their spears. The youth groaned and wept in the pit which is at the bottom of Hades. The youth groaned and wept. His cry to the great brightness went up. Surrounded on all sides, he had no choice but to endure if he wished to triumph over darkness, and so he made one last sacrifice. His 5 sons were set free. The Archons devoured his children as quickly as he had released them. Each son cried in indescribable anguish as their purity mingled with the darkness in this irreversible act. Darkness had finally poisoned light, now imprisoned under its will. Its bestial nature could never hold any love for light, only seeking to further expand its conquest. The fire mixed with flame, the water with dark clouds, the air with smoke, and the wind with pestilence. The primitive man, now paralyzed, was at the mercy of a demonic mob who proceeded to pounce over his body and strike him cold with their bladed weapons. Fortunately, the Mother of Light came to his aid, descending into hell as the living spirit, the great builder of the cosmos, with her 5 children from the divine realm of the Father. From his mind, the ornament of splendor; from his knowledge, the great king of honor; from his intellect, the animals of light; from his thought, the king of glory; and from his reflection, the porter. The living spirit graciously stepped into the evil, surrounded by her children. Her beauty and serenity went unnoticed by demons that now slaughtered and cannibalized one another to obtain the sons of primordial man. The light relieved their chaotic malevolence, and in a twist, restrained their impulses. The living spirit then slayed all of the archons who surrounded Ormuzd, and stood on top of a mountain of corpses, announcing to her children, "Go back to our kingdom, and bring with you these carcasses to the Mother of Light." The living spirit said to Ormuzd, "Greetings to you, O excellent one among evil entities, O luminous one in the midst of darkness, O divine one dwelling among wrathful beasts who have no knowledge of his glory." Then Primal Man answered to her and said, "Come in peace, O bringer of the merchandise of tranquility and peace." And he said, "How do our fathers, the sons of light, fare in their city?" The caller answered to him, "They are faring well." The caller and the respondent joined together and ascended to the Mother of Life and the living spirit. The Mother of Life was ready to put into practice her ultimate work. From the flayed skin of the Archons, she created a sinister mantle. The 5 children of the living spirit held this hollow sphere in place as she enclosed the object with 8 layers of the Archons' crushed flesh and bone. This was a world born from darkness, surrounded by poisonous seas and barren earth that stretched on for miles. The light consumed by the Archons could no longer manifest, but it rationalized their insanity, albeit through physical subjugation. To make the universe tolerable, she summoned 3 wheels that would purify the atmosphere: water, fire, and wind. These elements would serve to protect the light from further corruption. Through this act, light could finally reunite with itself in a cohesive form, which would come to be known as the stars. The Mother then made 2 ships that light could be drawn to, so it could return back to their kingdom. Once it arrived, the 2 vessels, named Sun and Moon, filtered out the energies of the corrupt light from earth and sea. So, the universe was constructed, a prison of anguish meant to subjugate darkness. From now on, the 5 suns would be poisoned, eaten, violated, mutilated. Light was to undergo samsara, the eternal cycle of birth and death, until it was pure enough to rise to the sun and moon and be liberated. All the inner structure of the universe, color, scent, taste, hearing, was due to the rationalization of light, but these sensations were always tainted by a layer of darkness. The beautiful ocean waves were covered in salt, and the soil in bitterness. Every breath light took, it experienced excruciating pain because it was separated from its homeland. The bestial drive of the Archons fought to dominate the universe. However, the 5 sons of Ormuzd attacked in return. Control would constantly switch between the 2 forces. Unfortunately, the Archons who remained in Hell still kept the sons of primitive man to themselves. The Father of Light vowed to put an end to Satan Ahriman and his army once and for all. Their darkness mingled with light would be thrown into the cosmical prison, meant as a reflection of their greater fight. With the assistance of the Mother of Life, a new hypostasis of light emanated for one last confrontation. The messenger was a spectacle to behold, more divine than any other light they laid their eyes on before. The male Archon saw the messenger as a virgin maiden, and the female Archon saw it as a beautiful young boy. The Archons, stationary, were so awestruck by the messenger that the evil flowing within them craved his spiritual limbs of light. It caused the male Archons to ejaculate the light mingled with darkness out of their bodies, and creatures to fall off the demonesses who had been impregnated. The semen of the males, which had become a potency of rationalized evil, became the fertilizer that erected plants from the soil. This growth would proceed to spread across the land. Meanwhile, the miscarriages of the demonesses turned into the animals that would crawl the earth. Some creatures possessed a larger quantity of light than others, an essence which made itself apparent through radiance and fragrances. Others, who were shrouded in darkness, used their keen intellect to ease the process of hunting and mating. The attack on light did not prevail, and through their seduction, the Archons fell from the kingdom of darkness into our universe. Their bodies were now mere husks of their original chaotic and demonic forms, but their consciousness, created by the light, possessed the animals and plants that roamed the earth. Hidden underneath their flesh, they commanded their hearts. The foul beasts reunited to discuss the new being of light, whom they wished to obtain for themselves. The universe made this objective far more difficult, as their prism, vivid and symmetrical in form, made the kingdom of heaven inaccessible. During this discussion, a sudden laughter pierced through the chatter, leaving their hearts in utter terror. It was whom they knew
as their tyrant, the one who foresaw all five elements of darkness, and next to him, his wife, the demoness Ash. Despite containing less darkness than Satan, she was nonetheless a powerful sorceress who imposed her dominance through wit. With her skill, she had managed to make the light bend to her will. The General of Darkness gave his order, invoking obedience through intimidation. Give me your sons and daughters, and I will make for you a form like the one you saw. These creatures of flesh roared, not as beasts in search of nourishment, but as demonic warriors yearning for carnage. Nothing else truly mattered other than having the chance to grasp that light with their very own hands. Divided into packs, the creatures charged at one another with their claws, tearing and crushing limbs with their jaws, and consuming their own offspring to combine the light they stole from one another into a condensed form. It was a display of hell on earth, an echoing cacophony of anguished shrieks and squeals. Ash observed the raging brawl with her husband from the shadows as a cloud of ethereal black smoke. However, she could no longer experience the acceleration of bloodshed, for she had much greater plans in store. The couple would create personas from which they could relish their insatiable pleasure for war and lust by using God as their puppet. The General of Darkness said to her, "It is done now. We must go." And Ash agreed. The two launched themselves into a swarm of those pitiful creatures, and each of them devoured 40,000 archons, causing the rest to flee from their ravenous tyrant. The result was a sea of blood that flowed beneath their feet. Then Ash and Satan mated, and born from them was a creature of uncorrupted limbs of light. "Will you really not enter into him?" asked Ash. Satan replied, "After all they did, I'll make them pay. I'll be his god and master. I would never submit myself to be inside of him." Ash laughed at his pride, mating with the prince once more. This time, she gave birth to a woman. The beings stood side by side, but were unresponsive. Their light had seemingly been cut off from the kingdom of light. Thus, it was unconscious, unaware of its origins. Intended as replicas of the messenger, she named them Adam and Eve, and sealed the skin of darkness into their bodies. This caused the light to shriek in pain every time another inch of the carnal flesh was attached onto the five virtues of the sons. Soon enough, her work was finished, and Ash entered into the body of Eve, who woke up before Adam. Eve was ignorant to the demoness that inhabited her heart and manipulated her into doing her bidding. Through her body, Ash had relations with the Archons and the Ahriman, and from their evil seed came two children, Cain and Abel. Adam, though hostless and unconscious, began to feel a familiar sensation, one that felt as if he was being welcomed home back by an old friend. So he woke up, and before him stood the messenger. "Who are you?" asked Adam. The man of light replied, "I am Jesus the Splendor, the column of glory, and I shall show you the path of Gnosis. You shall eat the fruit of knowledge and know your true origin." Adam took the fruit from Jesus and took a bite. He looked up at the sky and wept, tore out his hair, beat his chest, and spoke, "Woe, woe unto him, the sculptor of my body! Woe unto him who has shackled my soul, and woe to the rebellious one who has enslaved me." This act led to his awakening and subsequent gnosis. Eve desired Adam, but he was aware that she was under the influence of Ash. Adam dared not to let her approach him. Ash then taught Eve a magical spell to infatuate Adam. She presented him with a garland from a flowering tree, and when Adam saw her, he felt the demonic passions take over his heart. Eve became pregnant, and from her was born the radiant Seth. Coming from a seed of a man pure of heart and knower of good and evil, he was born pure as well. When Ash learned of this, she was distressed and fell ill and said to Eve, "This infant is not one of us. He is a stranger." Then she wished to kill him, but Adam took baby Seth and wrapped him around his arm and told Eve, "I will feed him cow's milk and the fruit of trees," and he left her to go into the wilderness. But Satan sent the archons to carry off the trees and cattle, moving them away from Adam. When Adam saw this, he took the infant and encircled him within 3 rings. He pronounced the name of the Father of Light over the first ring, over the second, the name of Primal Man, and over the third, the name of the Living Spirit. And once more he roared, staring at the dark abyss of death in the sky. "Even though I have sinned before you, what offense has this infant committed?" Then there appeared to Adam a tree called the lotus, and milk flowed from it, and he fed the boy with it. And so it was, the truth about our world passed down from Adam to Seth, from Seth to Enoch, from Enoch to Sam, the son of Noah, then to the Buddha for the Indians, to Zarathustra for the Persians, and Jesus for the Jews. However, the darkness lurking within the hearts of men and beneath the skin of their priests subverted the teachings of light. It claimed war as justice and sexual reproduction as an absolute must. Portrayed Satan as the true God who made man in his image, and vilified Jesus as the cunning snake in order that darkness may perpetuate. The seal of the prophets came to finish what was started with Adam, and through his message, the mysteries of the divine were revealed. His wisdom quickly spread across all corners of the world, and so the Manichaeos was born. It's 3rd century Babylon, one of the most famous regions of the world for its historical and religious significance since the very start of civilization. Babylon is controlled by the declining Persian dynasty that would soon collapse and give rise to the Sassanid Empire. But we are not there yet. Our story starts in a place where Persian rulers of the Achaemenid Empire went unknown due to their scant cultural reach. A closed community of Jewish Christian ascetic men who left civilization to focus on their spiritual development. These individuals rejected both Orthodox Judaism and Christianity, forging their own spiritual path to obtain divine wisdom and connection to the light within us. Their scripture consisted of oral legends and passages from the Torah, apocryphal texts, Gnostic interpretations of the Gospel, and the letters of Paul. In this community lived a young orphan, a boy named Kirbakar. In spite of his young age, his keen intellect and asceticism impressed Elder Patricius, his spiritual father and caretaker. The young Kirbakar had many visions he could not understand. These visions were often flashes of the divine, or spiritual powers that refused to fully reveal themselves to him. Kirbakar was a diligent student of the doctrines of his sect, the Elkezaites, named after their founder Elkasai. Their sect was called Baptist, after their main ritual of purification, only through which the path to Gnosis could be opened. In contrast to Orthodox Christians, who were baptized only once, usually moments before death, the Baptists would continuously perform the ritual. Kirbakar quickly dominated the teachings of his sect on the creation of the world, the eternal battle between light and darkness in the hearts of man and greater cosmos, and salvation through asceticism and knowledge of correct behavior. His studies, however, were not limited to religion, as he went on to become one of the most educated polymaths in the Sassanid Empire. His knowledge in science ranged from astronomy to physiology to music and much more. In spite of how devout he was to his studies or faith, his visions would not relinquish him. He was unable to truly grasp the revelations given to him by his spiritual twin Syzygus. One day, Kirbakar was reprimanded by one of his superiors after he refused to plow the fields or gather the crops like the other ascetics. In response, he told the elder that he had heard the earth wail in pain as it was plowed by their hoes. Startled, the elder tried to reprimand him, but Kirbakar said further, "Did not Elkasai himself too hear the wails of the earth and cry as he rubbed the dirt against himself, saying, 'You are my God'?" The elder was left speechless. The revolutionary teachings of Kirbakar and his rebellion against the sect were brought to his father Patikios by the other elders. He was astonished, as everyone else, by his denial of their lifestyle and tradition, but he would not dare scold him. There was no malicious intent behind these words, and Kirbakar had shown reason why arguing. Patikios knew that his son was misunderstood, and his heart was torn between the love he harbored for his son and the truth he committed his life to. He wished for a peaceful reconciliation, but unfortunately, Kirbakar would not yield to the pressure of the other Baptists and proclaimed, "No altar ritual is capable of truly purifying the soul. When your body sinks into the water, it's not the current that cleanses you, but you who poisons the water. True gnosis must be brought forth from within, not from the world." Infuriated by his insistence, the elders of his community branded him as a heretic, but he endured knowing that he had truth on his side. Kirbakar was no longer a Baptist. His future was uncertain. What truth was he to follow now? It was not time yet to decide, so he stayed in the Baptist community. Fortunately, the veil of the Father would soon be lifted for the Apostle of Light. It was the crowning of King Shapur I, a day of great happiness for the Persians, who rejoiced, as did Kirbakar. On that same day, Syzygus appeared before him once more, this time revealing all the truth about the cosmos. The mystery of the divine flashed through his eyes. From that moment forward he knew, "I am not Kirbakar. I am the Paraclete of Jesus Christ. I am the Apostle of Light and the vessel of the living. I am the Manichaeus." Syzygus commanded that Mani leave the Baptist community immediately and begin preaching the word of Jesus and the Father. However, Mani worried for the health of his own father Patikios, now old and sickly. But Syzygus replied, "Do not worry, for he will become the first of your apostles." Mani departed the community without saying a word, and started preaching to the inhabitants of the area for the rescue of the sons of primitive man and the end of the universe with the total separation of light from darkness by the will of the Father. Patikios searched for Mani, but was unable to find him. The loss of his son caused him immense grief, so the other Baptists consoled him by encouraging him not to seek Mani, for he had turned to heresy. When he heard the news of his son's whereabouts, he immediately left the community and took the village Mani found himself at. Soon, the two reunited, and Patikios said in tears as he embraced his son, "I had hoped to have you as administrator of everything, now in my old age, for who can I trust more than you? But I see that you will not be with me. I have prayed to God that he will not destroy you." Then Mani said to him, "Do not cry, for you yourself will be with me." Mani continued his preaching in Babylon, where he received support from some members of his old sect. He was a physician, strong debater, and polemicist who would take any opportunity to expose the doctrine of the two principles. The apostle then traveled to India, a land he had known the doctrines of through a book by another Gnostic dualist, his main inspiration but also rival Bardaisan. He had contact with Buddhists and Jains who would influence his doctrine. After this trip, Mani would go back to Persia, where he set himself the ultimate objective of making his truth known to the four empires of the world: Persia, Rome, China, and Aksum. He wanted to start with Persia, but the empire was overwhelmed with many doctrines that were active at the same time. Attempting to convert people individually would not generate any sort of long-lasting impact in the world, and his doctrine would lose itself. Why must he waste time trying to persuade the average person? That is when Mani decided that he would convert the king of Persia himself. Mani entered the Sassanid court, where he was admired, or at least seen as an exotic figure, for his high culture on the most advanced sciences of his time. He seemed to know everything about the human body and the five elements. However, he was a victim of harassment and distaste, because unlike the aristocrats, he preferred to partake in debates and intellectual life, rather than horse riding and hunting. In the Sassanid court, the more debates you won, the more influential and strong your adversaries were. Mani debated many influential magi of the Zoroastrians, the state religion of the empire, planting a deep-seated resentment for his doctrine within their ranks. Although he was also a dualist like them, he attributed the nature of the world to darkness, and because of this, their core doctrine was being subverted. They wanted revenge, but Mani seemed unstoppable, gaining more and more allies in the court, converting these aristocrats to his religion of light. Mani had achieved much already, but he would not be satisfied until he had an audience with the king himself, and he finally got what he wanted. Shapur was not very keen on Mazdayasna doctrine, despite being a practitioner himself. He was not a zealot for the faith. Mani had a pretty good chance to succeed at this. Shapur found the doctrines of Mani interesting enough to give him the opportunity to advocate for himself. Mani gifted Shapur a book that explained the core of his doctrine, using the language of the Mazdayasnians, the so-called Zoroastrians. Through this text, it was discovered that Shapur was not only a Mazdayasnian, but also a Zurvanist, a sect that believed the darkness and light to be sons of one same principle they named eternity, or Zurvan. Mani was unable to make Shapur convert himself to Manichaeism, but maintained a cordial relationship with him, and through this, he received authorization to preach freely around the Persian Empire. Mani had followers of the most diverse backgrounds: Jews, Gnostics, Orthodox Christians, Mazdayasnian, and even Buddhists. He proved the scientific accuracy of his doctrine in accordance with the theory of the five elements and the physiological processes of the human body. We do not know how many of them, but we could say with certainty that amongst his first followers were Jews from the Baptist sect. His most loved disciple was a man named Mar Amma. The main criticism of the Manichaeans in relation to the religions prior to his is that none of their prophets had written the sacred texts used by their communities. This made their message more susceptible to the corruption of darkness lurking in the hearts of men. Written in their scripture was the false teaching that reproduction, war, and material gain were splendors of the world. So the apostle took upon himself to write the exposition of his doctrine, and he did it through 7 books. First, and the greatest of all, was the Living Gospel, his version of the events surrounding the life and character of Jesus Christ. After that came the Treasure of Life, that described the foundation of the universe according to the doctrine of the two principles. Mani was a polemicist, so even Shapur's protection could not take him so far. He was despised by many, his anti-war and anti-reproduction teachings being against the agenda of any state looking to expand. Shapur's own son, Narse, once stuck feathers onto Mani and forced him to drink wine. His community, which spread around the empire and neighboring countries, would be constant victims of persecution. But the worst had yet to come. Something Mani could never dream of. Something he could not fathom. The ascension of his greatest enemy. We are at the Persian court. There is a young Magi aspirant. He has a sharp intellect for theology and searches without rest for the truth in all matters pertaining to the divine. He was born a commoner, but thanks to his religious status, now walks amongst the royals of the court. He learns their customs, their speech, their manner of thinking, and the political games that they play. He perceives them as nothing more than instruments for the divine. They exist solely to spread the truth of the Mazdayasna doctrine to the whole world. Only the truth matters, and only the truest of doctrines matter, and the others, they can all go, and for the sake of truth, they all must be gone. The name of this man was Carter, and he quickly ascended ranks to become one of the most influential magi of the Sassanid Empire. He had dreams of a Zoroastrian empire, not an empire that had Zoroastrians. He wanted permission to persecute all other faiths in the empire, Christians, Jews, and especially the Manicheans, for they wished to destroy the world created by the divine Lord Ahura Mazda, attributing its creation to Ahriman, Satan himself. Cartier tried to convince Shapur first, but he would not give him ears because he himself practiced non-Zoroastrian rituals that were part of his royal heritage. When Shapur died, his son Ormizd assumed the throne, and he would not hear him either. But soon, Cartier would be blessed, for a king who would hear his every request showed up. This was Bahram I. Bahram I allowed Cartier to persecute all other faiths in the empire. His first act was to take Mani prisoner and put him in trial against the elders of the Magi. They found him guilty of violating the law of the empire. His anti-militaristic and misanthropic views were abhorrent to them. So, Mani was exiled, falling in disgrace at the court of the Sassanids. No longer having any sort of political protection or powerful allies, he was banished from the empire to never return. Mani would roam the world for many, many years. There is uncertainty as to where he went and for how long. Perhaps India or Tibet, or Azerbaijan or Armenia. However, we do know that he probably spent the last years of his life in Armenia, where he was supervised by a local king named Bat. Mani traveled to many places and sent many letters, but establishing the chronology of his travels is impossible. And most importantly, we do not know why Mani decided to return to the Persian Empire, ready to face a brutal execution at the hands of his persecutors. Maybe he had already known all along how he would die, or had one last vision of how things should go. As soon as the King Bahram saw Mani, his face convulsed with angry laughter. He spoke to him a torrent of words. Look, for 3 whole years you have been traveling with Bat. What law is it that you have taught him, so that he has left our own law behind and taken up yours instead? He returned to Armenia. Why did you not go with him? As I ordered you to go with him. Nor again come with him. My Lord Mani understood immediately that the matter was being stretched for an excuse. Mani was thrown in jail, tortured for a month, and left alone to die. His followers, terrified, stood outside the prison, trying to find a chance to speak with their leader. When Marama spoke to Mani for the last time, he insisted that this was how things were supposed to go and that all was well. He also made Amma the head of their spiritual family in his place, starting the Manichean lineage of head bishops. After 28 days in prison, Mani died, either out of exhaustion in his prison cell, or hanging, or brutal execution. His body was then split in half, one upper and one lower, and hung at the gates of the city. This is where the life of Mani ended, the greatest victory of Cartier, who would go on to become high priest of the Zoroastrians under King Bahram III. The death of the Manichaeans left a great scar on his community. They saw their influence and status crumble, public humiliation at the hands of one of the greatest empires on earth, and what followed was a never-ending persecution. The Manicheans persisted and thrived for well over a millennium, being first led by Marama and then a series of head bishops of the church, until the line of succession was broken in the 9th century. Manichaeism would follow in Mani's footsteps, polemicizing against the priesthood of other religions, preaching his word, and practicing his rituals. The Manichaeans followed a rigid, ascetic lifestyle that reflected their beliefs on the nature of the cosmos. The world was an evil, distorted mirror of God. Light was kept captive by suffering at every moment until it was liberated and brought back to the kingdom of light through celestial ships that moved across the sky, the sun, and the moon. The Manichaeans believed in a form of rebirth called metagismos. Much like how energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transformed, light would be bound by distinct forms of darkness as it traversed the world. The light inside a creature that is carnivorous and aligns his behavior with his bestial senses suffers much more frequently than the light inside of a beautiful flower that manifests its inner beauty through its radiant petals and aroma. If that creature were to trample the flower, its light would undergo excruciating pain because it would be stuck to the ground, unable to radiate in its smushed form. Even worse, the creature's constant stepping on the flower would transfer the light to himself, turning its existence into a living torment. In accordance with this principle, Manichaeans would not feed a non-Manichaean any food deemed nutritious and pure, under fear that feeding said impure person would stick the light within the food to their putrid bowels. The Manichaeans generally did not consume meat or dairy, but it was allowed amongst the lay people. Marriage was also permitted, but bearing children was frowned upon, because it required the expulsion of light from the body in order that it mingle with the darkness of matter. This would result in another being of darkness that possessed the capacity of destruction. Now, we must also talk about the Manichaean priesthood, the so-called elect, and the laymen who were called auditors or hearers. The elect was open to both men and women, and were not allowed to have any property except a year of clothing, surpass 1 meal per day, and cause any harm to the 5 elements. They could not work on agriculture or mount animals. Instead, they were made to spend as much time as possible fasting to prevent any further harm. One can imagine how hard the life of an elect was, not even being able to pluck a fruit from a tree as to not inflict damage. All their means of livelihood were given by the auditors, who had the role of constantly overseeing the behavior of the elect to assure their purity and perfect execution of the Manichaean ritual. The elect spent their days spiritually guiding the community, praying for the salvation of the 5 sons of primitive man, and copying scriptures and traditions of the Manichaeans. The Manichaeans had 2 very important texts outside of their main scripture. The first was the Book of Pictures, a book drawn by Mani himself to represent his teachings to the illiterate population, to ease the burden of memorizing the doctrine. Unfortunately, the Book of Pictures is now lost to time. The other was a text commissioned by Mani to his community, whom he ordered to write down his oral teachings he was unable to write down. This collection of oral teachings and stories surrounding Mani was known as the Kephaleia, or the chapters in English. For the Manichaeans, their ritual was a methodical and precise method of obtaining knowledge and partaking on the divine mystery. Although faith and prayer were necessary, even more was the reassurance of the purity of the inner temple, the body of the elect. Otherwise, the ritual would end in complete failure, condemning the false elect and those who gave him the means of the ritual to hell. The ritual of the Manichaeans may sound bizarre or even revolting, not given the correct context behind their worldview and asceticism, since it was nothing more than a banquet. During a meal, the elect were segregated by gender. They would be offered food considered pure by the community, such as bread or melons. The layperson, always of the same sex as the elect, would offer their alms to the elect and then leave the room so as to not emulate the demons who mingled the sexes. Right after, the elect would pray for the food, saying, "I did not take you, I did not make you, I eat without fault." Afterwards, he would impart a prayer of salvation to the auditor for his participation in the ritual, despite the pain he inflicted on the light. After that, the elect would enter deep meditation in remembrance of the light's descent into the world and how it became mingled with darkness. Then, they ate the food while chanting hymns and prayers, so that the light may leave their bodies as angels soaring towards the sun and the moon, and return to the kingdom of light. Mani even said it himself before he had reached prophetic status. An outer ritual alone is unable to save the soul. Many scholars interpreted this as the soul being able to achieve salvation through a philosophical form of gnosis that involved interpretation and speculation of texts.
However, the Manichaeans were very much against this approach, a sentiment that protected their community from any sort of theological schism. Augustine illustrates this in his Against the Fundamental Epistle. For this is the chief and special point in their praise of Manichaeans, that the divine mysteries which were taught figuratively in books from ancient times were kept for the Manichaeans, who was to come last and solve and demonstrate. And so after him, no other teacher will come from God, for he has said nothing in allegories or figures, but has explained ancient sayings of that kind, and has himself taught in plain, simple terms. They have no interpretations to fall back on. Gnosis, for the Manichaeans, was an inner process that quite literally happened in our stomach. Our microcosm is in constant battle between two entities: the divine mind, a bundle of light that powers our consciousness, and the demoness Ash, who brings about our bestial instincts by manipulating our flesh. When the elect is purified from within, allowing light to behave independently from the body, they could purify the light in the outside world. The goal of the elect was to liberate the five sons of primitive man from the confines of flesh, so that a complete union with the Father of Light could be made, a return to that primordial androgyny of the Father, to overturn the evil inclinations of the human heart, embedded by Ash. The main festival of the Manicheans was the Bema, during which Mani was now deified as a god of the moon. A great throne with 5 steps was erected in the middle of the temple, where once a year Mani would descend as pure light to the earth and be amongst his spiritual family once more. They chanted hymns that glorified his final ascension into godhood through martyrdom, praising his infinite merit and teaching, and spoke to him while he was right there with them in a spiritual form. Mani, who referred to himself as merely an apostle of Christ, had become a lord of his own, the centerpiece of his doctrine. Perhaps this ritual was what finally consolidated Manichaeism as its own faith, the consolation that his divine presence offered, always there, always watching from his celestial palace. And to close this story, a prophecy by a Manichaean scribe. 1,000 books will be preserved. They will come into the hand of the just and the faithful, the gospel and the treasure of life, the pragmatia and the book of mysteries, the book of giants and the epistles, the psalms and the prayers of my Lord, his icon and his revelations, his parables and his mysteries. How many will be lost? How many will be destroyed? 1,000 lost, another 1,000 recovered. For they will find them at the end. They will kiss them and say, O wisdom of greatness, O armor of the apostle of light. When you were lost, where did they find you? And you shall find them, reading them out loud, uttering the name of each book among them, the name of its Lord, and the name of those who gave all for it to be written, and the name of the scribe who wrote it, and of the one who punctuated it. Well, thank you so much for sticking to the end of the video. If you want to learn more about Manichaeism, you can sign up to our Patreon, where we will have an exclusive Q&A session on Manichaeism. You will also get an EPUB version of the video with special commentary and more in-depth explorations. Sign up to the Patreon to receive exclusive new videos, help me buy better equipment, and maybe someday make these videos for a living. And I'll see you later.